So I thought I would bring you into my kitchen today because, yeah, I don't know. I just thought it might be fun to take you through some of the random recipes that I had planned for the week, none of which I've really made before. So what I'm going to be making today is Punjabi lobia, which is essentially just like a masala with black-eyed peas. So it's not going to be rich. It's going to be like relatively like tomatoey, a little bit saucy, not creamy or anything like that. Now I've made lobia dishes before, and it's nice because black-eyed peas cook really fast. So I'm going to be using my Instant Pot to make this, which makes it even faster. But if you don't have an Instant Pot, dried black-eyed peas do cook up in 45 minutes to an hour. So it could be one of those things where you set it up on the pot, you just kind of walk away and live your life, and then you're going to have food that's ready for you. So I want to get some prep going because once we get going, this is all going to start happening pretty fast. So I'm going to prep my garlic and ginger, and I'll kind of walk you through my process of how I do that. So I want about a tablespoon of grated garlic and ginger. The reason that I use my grater is because it's way faster than attempting to mince garlic and ginger, and then you have like a more evenly dispersed flavor. You're not just going to bite into like a big hunk of garlic. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Garlic is quite lovely and wonderful. But I still like a more even flavor distribution. But if I'm being like completely honest, what I really love is not chopping and mincing garlic and ginger. So that's my main priority, honestly, most of the time is efficiency. So all I'm doing is just running my knife along this ginger to peel it so that I have a peeled, I don't know, that's probably a 1.5 inch cube of ginger, which should translate down to about a tablespoon. I mean, it's not like this isn't like a super scientific thing. That garlic is kind of gnarly. It's basically just like, I don't know. Honestly, with things like garlic and ginger, a lot of the time I end up feeling like the more the merrier. So apparently I did not grab very much garlic. I'm gonna have to grab more. So my method of peeling garlic is just to squish them lightly with the side of my knife. And that makes the papers come off nicely. So you're not struggling with the papers. I've tried all kinds of bizarre methods of de-papering garlic, including shaking them in a bowl, like a metal bowl with a cover, and just like, I need more garlic here. And yeah, that's, it works, I guess, if you want to pull out an entire pot to prep your garlic, which just honestly seems like some pretty significant overkill, when all you really need to do, oh, I smushed that maybe a little too much. Just give it a little bit of a smush, and then the papers just slip right off. Like, I don't know, I was going to say something about clothing, and then I felt that was about to get inappropriate with the garlic. So, here I have my garlic and ginger, and I'm just going to run the microplane along the microplane. So basically, just sit and do this for a little while until we get like a paste. Maybe like a very minor arm workout, but a lot easier. Like, it takes probably like at least triple the time to finely mince ginger, and it's a pain. So what I'm gonna do actually while I continue to prep this is I want to get my I shouldn't turn on my stove. I'm turning on my Instant Pot. I'm just setting it to saute, and I'm gonna put in a spoon of vegan butter. You could use oil. You don't need to use butter, but I do like to use I do like to use some kind of oil type thing, because what we're going to be doing is sauteing some mustard seeds and cumin seeds just for a minute to kind of like bring out their toasty flavor, and you need a little bit of fat in order to make that happen. And the fat's going to make the garlic and the ginger just like really fragrant. It's going to help the tomatoes break down and cook evenly. By the way, on my cutting board, you'll see that I have some tomatoes that look really beautiful, and they're from my garden, you guys. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that glorious tomato. I still have, I think we harvested our garden tomatoes, I think like mid-September before the frost. I live in a northern climate, so we have a pretty short season here, but my parents' garage is just littered with ripening tomatoes right now, and they're still glorious. We're still enjoying them. We'll probably keep enjoying them for another month or so. My dad likes to make, by the way, I'm just grating the garlic right now, and I like to leave the stem end on, and just that gives me something to grip while I grate all this. And then I'm gonna have this like really, really lovely paste that's going to diffuse itself in the food. So aside from, I'll tell you about my dad in a moment, but aside from the ginger and garlic, all we really need to prep is the tomato, and everything else is just adding ingredients. So this is a super, super, super simple recipe. The thing is that like, I didn't pre-plan this. So I didn't think like, oh, I'm going to bring people into my kitchen this week. So unless you cook like Indian type food, you might not have some of these spices on hand. Oh, I can hear can you hear that? Why did I try to imitate that noise? Totally didn't work. The sizzly noise of the butter. What I find with the Instant Pot is the saute function is really, really, really hot. So I'm going to have to move pretty fast when I do this. It's pretty much go time. I've already washed my tomatoes. I do want to remove the core. So I'm going to use one of like my pointy little spoons to just kind of like, I don't know, kind of like maneuver out the tough core part. Kind of looks messy, but gives me a flat surface to work with. And yeah, then I don't have to fight with the core. And when I've made recipes like this before, you can also use canned tomatoes, which is honestly what I usually do when I don't have tomatoes that are ready, like if they're not in season or you can't grow them where you live or whatever. These are juicy, but there now I have the cores out, so it'll be a lot easier to slice them. So first things first, maybe I will be kind and measure for you, which is something that I don't overly frequently do. But I'm going to put in this hot butter. I think it might be getting just a little too hot. I'm going to turn the saute off for a minute. Instant Pot's like, you can't control the heat, so it's a little fickle. I'm going to put in about a 1/4 teaspoon of mustard seeds and cumin seeds. And what we're going to wait for is for them to kind of, like the mustard seeds especially, we want them to kind of start popping and get excited. Get excited in the butter. And they start to like transform colors a little bit, like the mustard seeds start going like darker. You could use black or white mustard seeds, it's totally fine. So while that's hanging out there, I'm going to begin slicing my tomato into a dice. Now my knife needs a sharpen. So if you don't have a super sharp knife, the way that I deal with tomatoes is I take the tip and I kind of fracture the skin, and then it's much easier to slice. It kind of just slides through. And notice that I'm barely using any pressure when I'm slicing the tomato. It's just slow motion, because as soon as you kind of push on, oh, there's the pop. As soon as you start pushing on the tomato and reaming into it, you're gonna like deform them. They're gonna get all like squished. Okay, since I hear, I don't know if that's like the cumin seeds or something. Oh, there's a little dark spot on the bottom here, so I'll just cut around that. It kind of gets the tomatoes all funky and deformed, so I like just putting very low pressure on them. And then I'll keep chopping those, but I want to add the garlic ginger paste. See, it's not even on saute anymore, and it's still kind of wildly sizzling. So I'm going to let this go for about 30 seconds. Let it start smelling really good. I'm kind of trying to push the ginger garlic paste to the edge, because that's where all my butter is migrated to. And once that's been going, I'm going to start dumping my diced tomatoes in. So I'm just, yeah, I mean, I'm basically making sure I have thin strips of tomato, and then I'm running in the opposite direction to create a dice. And this is going to break down in the Instant Pot, so I don't need to worry about this being like a perfect dice or anything like that, because we're going to have the Instant Pot going for 10 minutes. Or if you were doing this on a stovetop, you'd have it going for like an hour. So the tomatoes are really, really going to break down. So you don't need to worry about having like gigantic chunks. Starting to get dark in here. The ginger garlic paste sticking a little bit in the middle. Not worried about that, because once we add liquid, that'll kind of de-stick itself and the flavor will still be in there. But yeah, the Instant Pot's kind of like a weird shape, right? It's like a little bigger, like it's taller in the middle, and then it kind of, what is that, concave? Is that convex? I think it's convex, where it's taller in the middle and then domes outward. So things tend to, like the butter and oil tends to slide all to the edges. So I don't usually like spending much time sauteing in the Instant Pot for a lot of reasons, including the heat control and reasons that I've mentioned. But I want to be able to do this all in one pot. So that's all my chopping. That's all my veggie prep. So I'm going to stir in the tomatoes and let that go for, I don't know, just like a minute or two. Just to, I mean, we're basically just allowing the tomatoes to cook in with the garlic ginger paste a little bit. So I'm going to turn the heat back on now. Let's get that rewarmed. And yeah, basically my next step is just to add a whole bunch of spices. I was going to talk about my dad. Something about, he makes salsa. Thank you, Instant Pot, for telling me that you're on. He makes like jumbo batches of salsa. So we grow like insane amounts of tomatoes. Like the garage floor is littered with tomatoes. Even after he's made like many batches of salsa. But it's I don't know, I'm not very good at gardening, and I really neglect my garden when I do, but it's kind of fun. So it's nice to be able to use my own ingredients. So I'm just looking at my list here. So basically what I'm going to do is start adding spices. So turmeric is, even if you don't cook Indian food, tends to be an ingredient that most people have. Especially if you're doing like a lot of like vegetarian cooking. A lot of dishes require turmeric for color, like to creating like a yellow color. So a lot of people just happen to have it around. I am going to be adding cayenne. So most people also have cayenne lying around. There are different types of chili powders that I could be using for this, but since cayenne is common, that's just going to give it a nice kick. So we'll get in there. I want to add some ground cumin. So, that's not the ground cumin. Where's my ground cumin? There you are. Because this is gonna make sure the cumin flavor is in the entire dish, whereas the seeds, like when you bite into a cumin seed, it just adds this like really nice like pop of flavor in your mouth, but the flavor doesn't distribute in the entire sauce. So I like using both the powder and the seeds. I'm sure you could make this work and it would taste just fine without the seeds. I just like the extra layer. So I'm also adding a half tablespoon of ground coriander, and I think that's pretty much all I'm going to add aside from a bit of salt. We'll start with, I'm going to add about half a teaspoon of salt too, and we'll kind of see where this takes us. If I feel like it needs more salt after the fact, then it's a lot easier to add salt later than to subtract salt. So I'm just, that smells just like beautiful. The best part about cooking a curry is that it makes your house smell amazing for the rest of the day. So I'm gonna let that do its thing. My next step is going to be to prepare the black-eyed peas, or the lobia. So we're gonna be using a cup of this, which is almost exactly how much I have. I feel like I might as well just use it all, right? Like there's just a tiny bit left, so why would I keep any extra? And then I'm gonna measure out a couple cups of water, maybe a little bit extra if I'm going a little extra on the black-eyed peas. And then that's it. Then I'm gonna, there's one more step at the very end, and we're gonna be adding some spinach to this to make it healthy. That was 2 cups. Here's my cup and some change. Black-eyed peas. We'll let that do its thing. Stir that in, and I'm going to put on the lid, and we'll get this guy going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this for manual pressure cook for. I got to turn off the Saute. Manual pressure cook for 10 minutes. And I'm basically going to let it pressure cook for 10 minutes, and then let the steam release for about 10 minutes before I pop off the lid, just to give it a little bit of extra cooking time. And then to finish it off, and I'll bring you with me when I do, so you can see what everything looks like when it's finished, I'm gonna add in several handfuls of fresh baby spinach. Now, the reason that I'm adding this at the end, once it's done cooking, is because otherwise the spinach is just gonna totally disintegrate, where what I'm looking for in this dish are spinach leaves that are still plump and juicy even though they're cooked. So if I let them sit and pressure cook at 10 minutes, they're basically gonna kind of get gray and disintegrate, which is sometimes if you're making something like palak paneer, like a really heavily green based dish, you want it to really, really break down. But I want something that tastes a little bit fresher today. So as a final thing, because I'm making a meal, I'm not just going to eat black-eyed peas. I'm going to make some rice to go with it as well. So there's a couple things I'm going to show you with just making like a simple pot of white basmati rice. I do also eat brown rice, but I just like having white rice as a treat sometimes. It tastes really good. So I'll take you through my process of that. Basically what I'm going to do is get a kettle of water on the go. I don't like to be too finicky. Sometimes I just make rice without like a couple extra steps that you're going to see me do here. But I don't know, sometimes I like to do the extra steps. So if I want like a little bit more decadent rice. So I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of butter into the pan. I'm going to let that melt. And all I'm going to do is get that butter melted. And again, you could use oil. I'm just using like vegan earth balance. I'm going to put in the rice. Once the butter's melted, I'm going to stir it in with a little bit of salt so that it coats all of the grains individually. And I feel like the final result is just, like not only is it fluffy the way you'd cook it without oil, but it just creates like an extra beautiful texture. And when we add the salt too, it's giving a little bit of flavor. So like I said, this is kind of a decadent version of rice for me. I do this sometimes. I definitely don't do this all the time. But yeah, sometimes it's nice to, I don't know, have treats. All right, so my butter has melted, so I'm just going to get in this bag of rice. It's really lovely, extra long grain basmati that's been aged. Probably my favorite white rice of all time. And I'm going to get this in there, stir it up with a little bit of salt to to coat everything. So I'll just kind of take you through this a little bit. And once all the grains are coated, I'm going to put in boiling water, not just cold water. Because I feel like, I don't know, I read a lot of food blogs and cookbooks and stuff, and that seems to be a thing people do. And I kind of tend to just take people's methods for face value, and it always helps me come up with really good tasting rice. So I'm like, well, who am I to... maybe I should do like a back-to-back, like side-by-side comparison sometime to see like what difference that actually makes, because I kind of just take people's word for it. But you can do this with cold water. I know it'll work fine. So I'm just going to get the 1.5 cups. So 1.5 cups of water to 1 cup of rice is about the right ratio for white basmati. I'll get the lid on, and I'm cranking up the heat so I can bring this to a boil. Once it's at a boil, you can see my Instant Pot's getting all riled up. So once my rice is boiling, I'm going to cook it for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to take it off the heat, and then I'm going to let it sit. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to open the lid, do anything for another 10 minutes. So it's kind of like a total 20-minute cook time for the rice. 10 minutes on the stove, 10 minutes like off the burner, but still sitting on the stove before I open it up. Basically, if you open up rice too early and stir it, it's like you could like activate the starches, which makes it less fluffy and more likely to clump together. So we really only want to fluff it up with a fork, so we don't disturb the starch, and we only want to do that at the end. And that's going to give us like our perfectly separated, fully cooked grains of rice. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait for my food now because I'm done cooking. So at this point, it's, wait for my rice to finish, wait for my lobia, and just throw in some spinach at the end, which I'll show you. And that is hopefully going to taste great. All right, so I've got my rice here. It has cooked for 10 minutes. It has sat for 10 minutes, and I am going to fluff this, this beautiful, fragrant, heavenly grain with my fork to basically just like fluff it up and separate the grains. It cooked perfectly. It's not too damp or sticky or anything like that. What we want is just like perfectly separated, almost dry grains. So let's just see how it tastes. That's the stuff, you guys. Just that little bit of butter and salt. Oh my goodness. I could just eat this plain, like totally by itself. So we're just going to wait for our lobia to come down from pressure, and then we'll finish everything off. All right, so I'm here with my Instant Pot. The pressure's just come down, and I will say, I ended up looking on the Instant Pot's Cooking Times website, and they said that black eyed peas take 14 to 18 minutes. So after I left, I ended up adjusting the time to be 15 minutes, and I thought that'd be about right. Actually, this looks pretty great. Hopefully you can kind of see what's happening in here, but I'll bring it up to the camera in a moment. It's not super saucy, but definitely broken down. I can tell the black eyed peas are cooked. The main thing now is going to be tasting for salt and just making sure like the flavor's right. If I need to add any like vinegar or anything like that. Perfect texture with 15 minutes. Your mileage may vary with whatever kind of black eyed peas you're using and how old they are, because it just, beans are variable in how long they take, just depending on, yeah, like older beans take longer to cook. I am adding another quarter teaspoon of salt or so. My rice is lightly salted, so I don't need to go nuts on the salt. But when I'm looking in here, I'm thinking this is going to make about like 4 servings, assuming you're serving it alongside rice or something like that. So I'm going to just dish up and then bring everything over so you can have a look. So I'm going to plate this in one of my shallow bowls and put them on each side. So I'm going to put some rice on one side. I'm really hungry, so I'm going to do like a decent portion. So I basically put the rice all on one side, and what I'm going to do with the lobia is put it on the other side with a ladle. Just get that in there. It looks really, really lovely. Sometimes with the... Oh, I forgot to put in the spinach, you guys. Oh, every time there's always something. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to blast this on saute mode. I'm going to throw in a couple of handfuls of this pre-washed baby spinach. I don't know, roughly equivalent to a few handfuls. I never measure. Let's say like 4 cups. And I'm just going to heat this for about 2 minutes. That's about as long as it's going to take the spinach to wilt. And then we'll meet back and finish. One of the reasons that I really love cooking Indian food and other, basically any like non-American type food is because they tend to make beans taste really good. So in American cuisine, when we eat beans, we usually associate it with baked beans. That's what I'm trying to say. Chili, those are like the main ones that come to mind. There aren't a lot of like super beany dishes in American cuisine. It's more of like a side component. Whereas when you're making like an Indian curry or something like that, a lot of them are just like vegetarian by default. And beans are super healthy. They're super cheap. And not everyone likes to eat a bunch of like, you know, if you're eating vegan, it's like you don't always want to eat like processed food. And a lot of people are weird about tofu and stuff like that. So it's nice to have recipes in your repertoire that involve beans, or at least that's how I feel. And that's why it's pretty important to me to have like a good solid repertoire in place. So that's actually one of the reasons that I wanted to cook this particular recipe, because I wanted to, like I've made lobia before, like black eyed pea dishes, curries, but I want to have something that I can write down in my recipe binder as being like, you know, really, really good. Like this is something that I would share with someone, or this is something that I would make for someone. Something that I know is solid and reliable and worked well. And if like there are any modifications that need to be made, I can make note of that as well. So my spinach is looking done. So it's just wilted. And this will wilt further when it sits in the fridge. So I don't want to overdo it on the saute. I'll turn that off. And then you'll see when I bring it up close that the spinach isn't like super disintegrated. It's just this like really nice, it's going to be like plump and juicy, but still have some form, which I really like. So I'm going to come bring this up. All right, so here it is. You'll see it just looks lovely. It smells great. It's got this like really balanced flavor profile. I was stealing a bite. And yeah, this is it. This is good. This is about 4 servings. Very, very easy to make, especially if you have an Instant Pot. And yeah, I feel reasonably confident that I'll better assess this once I've had it a couple times, because the first time you have something, is not necessarily the best time to assess it. But after a day, you know, when you're eating a meal for the second or third time, you can really say like, is this actually that good though? Sometimes something just tastes amazing because you're really hungry, or sometimes something tastes not that good because you've never had it before and you just spent a bunch of time cooking. Have you guys ever had that? It's like someone who's cooking for me could make the most random meal and I'll generally find it tastes good. But if I'm actually cooking it myself, it's like the work detracts from my enjoyment of it. So it's usually like when I'm reheating leftovers or something like that where I'm like, actually this is like really super good. I can be a little bit more objective about it. But anyway, I'm about to dive in. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.